How do you see Nova Scotia's role as we have obviously a lot of the provinces have had turnover. We have a lot of conservative governments now. We have just had a federal election, and there's been some unrest, obviously from the West, people feeling that they're this feeling of alienation, and then we have social issues in Quebec that people are unhappy about. Does Nova Scotia have a role to play here?
Yeah, what we'll continue to play the role of in our case, ensuring the working to find bridges across the country. We were supportive of the fiscal stabilization program that would respond to Newfoundland and Labrador and Alberta and Saskatchewan when it comes to the fiscal challenges that they face in a resource shock. In terms of their revenue, we think and we supported them, and we'll continue to work with the national government. I raised that issue with the Prime Minister when I spoke to him. I think we've led the country, quite frankly, when it comes to some of the things that have happened around tape reduction. To bring internal trade, we're signing these big trade agreements with countries, and yet we're having these challenges internally. We've been leading the way to reducing that burden. The federal government has recognized that. At the same time, our message on a national level is we run a fiscally but a socially progressive government, and one that we believe some of the things that we're doing, like pre-primary, is one of those things that we can continue to help work with other provinces to implement that across the country. We want to work on a national level about how do we share our resources. As I said to my fellow premiers here in Atlantic Canada, we have a real opportunity when it comes to energy. And I raised the issue with the Prime Minister of supporting and investing with our utilities to ensure that we can move our renewable energy around the region, and that includes Quebec, bringing energy in from Quebec and moving energy in through Quebec into other parts of Canada. But that will require all of us to have a broader view than just our respective own utilities, and we'll make progress on that. It's my belief this will be the year that we make substantive progress on that.
So you recently met with all the premiers, and you obviously met with the Prime Minister as part of his series of premier meetings. Do you get any sense that the country's in any kind of trouble?
You know what, I worry about that the country has an east-west feel to it, which is not a healthy thing for Canada, and a central part of, I think we need to continue to make sure that we listen to one another. There's no question the Alberta economy was driving the Canadian economy, and we've benefited from that, whether it's our sons and daughters going out there to work and coming home, whatever the connection, whether it's the resource revenue that went to Ottawa that would come here. So we've benefited from Alberta's success. So we need to be mindful of the fact that they're feeling it today, and that as a province, there's a big shock for them. We need to be making sure that we have a voice with the federal government to say, we need to listen to this. That doesn't mean that that there isn't going to be tough conversations, but we need to these are real feelings in Alberta. Some of them are well-founded, and some of them aren't. But you have to be mindful of that. In our sister province in Newfoundland and Labrador, they lost $1 billion in revenue. $1 billion in 1 year, and they don't have equalization, and the support they got from the national government was $8 million. So that inside of the federation, we need to look at those fiscal programs to say, what do they look like, how do they work for all of us, and we need to have also a conversation about how we deliver some of these national programs while they are national programs. What is the uniqueness of individual regions? So when it comes to healthcare, we are an aging demographic here. So how do we make sure that we respond to that in a way and allow flexibility to respond to the needs of those particular parts of the country?
So are you optimistic, saying after having said all that, or are you a bit pessimistic, or are you just waiting to see how things develop?
I'm always optimistic. I believe Canadians have the voter has a way of shocking politicians into reality. I think the federal election gave everybody a chance to pause. I think the federal government, as well as, quite frankly, all of the other parties as well, that Canadians want to see something different. So strongly encouraged governments to pay attention to that. We get a lesson in ours when we were fortunate to be reelected with a second majority, but we lost some people, and part of that was around healthcare. And the region said, we're not being heard. There's been a change of that in more recent time where we're going to get voices out into the regions. That's and I think the message to the national government is there are parts of this country that don't feel that they're being listened to, and how do we put them back into the federation? And I think the Prime Minister is well on his way to doing that.